Greetings and welcome into the Sports Shuffle. I am Flying Ryan Gilkers along with.
Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verlin already 1-1 after the two games are done and concluded.
Yeah,
Reminding you that fantasy never goes the way you want it to.
week one's the hardest week of fantasy, I think, just because you think so much about the people you've drafted and then, well, reality hits.
Yeah, because when you do the drafts, and then these are the cadre of players that are going to be the center of your attention for the next few months, pretty much, basically.
Yeah, for anybody with Xavier Worthy, waiting to see how bad that
Ooh,
injury ends up being. We'll
you
talk about what happened in a little
You
bit.
you never like seeing a one of those medical views. Now let's talk about what happened in Xavier Worthy, and you're like, oh no, and your other thought is, okay, so that means who is the hope of the Kansas City whiteout room? That would be, God help them, it's Hollywood Brown right now.
Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster.
I know because I was listening to the name, and they're saying, yeah, it is. I'm like Juju Smith Schuster. I'm like, did we go into a time machine? And it's like a couple of years ago.
We back. Yeah. Friendly fire injury for Xavier Worthy. Looks like a shoulder dislocation, but nothing official
Caused
after
by
Monday.
whom? Who and caused the injury?
It was a whomping, brutal hit by teammate Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, it's the other team's going, yeah, good. So if they have like a bounty gate going on, do they pay Travis Kelsey like, okay, we know you're from the other team, but good job, here you go.
I mean, last year was Mahomes taking out Rice. This year it's Kelsey taking out Worthy. It doesn't look, again, no official determination is going to get an MRI today. Looked like a dislocation with how they tried to pop it back in. Not a season-ending injury if that is the case. But not a great look for Kansas City. Also, not a good look for Kansas City is losing the opener against the Chargers 27-21. Joel said 1-1. This is the game we did not agree on, and I took the Chargers. He took the
Yeah, because it
Chiefs.
looked like Mahomes was trying to do a little bit of that black magic, deal with the devil kind of stuff late in the first half, but just couldn't get it done. And how about Justin Herbert looking
Justin
awesome?
Herbert. What a game for Justin Herbert. 300 yards, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, had some good runs in the game to keep the ball moving down the field, including the one that sealed the game. Marion Hampton's rookie debut, not
Did you
spectacular, but
did you see
serviceable.
Mr. I'm just here so I don't get fined giving advice to Omarion Hampton on the sideline?
You could get advice from worse players for sure. But yeah, he decent game for O'Marion Hampton in his first outing. Not much out of Najee Harris. So if you took O'Marion Hampton in fantasy, he's at least going to get the opportunity. He should get better again.
Speaking
That Chiefs defense is pretty good.
speaking of not much, Devonta Smith and AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Oh
Philadelphia wins
boy.
the game 24-20, and unless you had CD Lamb, Justin or Jalen Hurts, or play Javonte Williams, you probably Dallas Goedert was fine for a tight end. You probably weren't very happy with.
Would Javonte Williams be classified under the like that segment they do that help no one?
Yeah, this week that helped no one. I saw him pop up on a bunch of dynasty leagues as trade bait, including one that I put myself. Didn't get a good offer yet, but he over 20 fantasy points, 2 rushing touchdowns. Dallas looked good. Of course, the spitting incident with Jalen Carter.
Who will
Did
not
Dak
be
spit first?
suspended? He
No.
is not going to be suspended, and Sirianni has said that everything will be handled in house as far as things go with Spitgate. Can you believe we have a Spitgate, and it's already game one, and it's not even 6 seconds in to game one of the 2025 season.
Yeah, it's we're back. But the Eagles win 24-20 over the Dallas Cowboys. The Chargers win 27-21. And frankly, the first half of the Eagles-Cowboys game was fantastic. After that, well, it was a great time if you had to be up early to go to bed at halftime.
Yeah, and you have to love because they were had like the little bit of a video of Trayvon Diggs apparently going around during the weather break looking for food, and there was apparently a cart of cold cuts, and he's like, "Oh, can I have some of that?" And then they say, "We're going into your locker room with that," and you can imagine how quickly that tray
Oh
was
yeah.
devoured. I mean, nanoseconds.
Yeah, and after that, nothing happened. It stayed 20. It was 21-20 at halftime. The
Well,
Eagles got
everything
a field
happened in the
goal.
first half. It was like you had the
Eagles got a
tail
field
two
goal on
halves.
their first drive, and then literally nothing happened the rest of the way. The weather delay a big part of that one, and
Yeah,
then I don't know about you, but is it concerning that AJ Brown had one target?
oh, yeah, the fact that he was not targeted until literally the last drive, and how many people, I imagine, started him in week 1. They're firing him up. Oh,
Everybody
okay.
who drafted him.
And yeah, you have to ask. You have to ask, is there anybody out there you think that is going to be putting him up on the trade block already after week 1?
Week 1 is the hardest week of fantasy for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. One, you think you know everything. These players come out, have great weeks that you don't expect, have bad weeks that you don't expect, and you panic. Week 1's loss or win counts as much as the win or loss in week 5, in week 10, in week 14. 15, 16, 17, that's a whole different thing. That's playoffs. But it counts the same in week 1 as it does in week 5. And the fantasy footballers had said, like, JSN last year's first game was like 2.8 points. He had 1.8 in a full PPR league, AJ Brown. Bad game? Absolutely. If you can go get him from someone on the cheap, maybe someone who had Mark Andrews last year and that slow start Andrews had, doesn't want to deal with that again, you might be able to get a value, but don't panic. Don't knee jerk. Don't think of Murray and Hampton. Oh my God, he only had 9 points in a PPR format. He's not going to be what we expect. Breathe. It's
Or,
only
or
week 1.
or even other people that kind of on the fantasy milk carton. You Isaiah Pacheco, 5 carries, 3 targets, and 28 total yards, or Kareem Hunt, 5 carries, 3 targets, 26 total yards.
Yeah,
Maybe, eesh.
Isaiah Pacheco is not a good fantasy start. I went 0 RB in a league this year, more because I kind of get pushed into it because of how the draft board went. A lot of running backs early. And Pacheco wasn't my starting lineup. And that, let's just say, not ideal for this week. But all in all, it will be okay. It's just week 1. The Chargers have a good defense. We saw that. Um, so again, don't panic after week 1. Even if you had AJ Brown, even if you had George Pickens, a little bit disappointing. Just relax. It's only the first 2 games of week 1. Um, but we'll get to our picks here in a second. We did have some news over Thursday and
Yeah.
Friday that was a little concerning, but it seemed like might have been a little overblown with Christian McCaffrey.
Well, I don't know, because you kind of have two schools of thought, as you have one school of thought that no alarm bells as far as everything, and then you have another school of thought that it's a nightmare for fantasy owners. Which do you lean towards?
Well, as of right now, it looks like all signs are pointing to him playing, and that is per Ian Rappaport. So he should be playing in week number 1. That should calm you down if you drafted him. Um, it's not what you want to hear after everything that happened last year with the calf injury that became Achilles tendonitis in one leg and then both legs. He missed half the season, came back, and immediately got injured. But he's going to play week number 1. You play him in your lineup, and you just hope he comes out of it unscathed. He's a 29, 30-year-old running back, and at the same time, you're going to understand injuries are a risk with an older player like that. If he's on the field, he's going to be great, and as long as he's got him, as long as you've got him on the field, he's going to be an advantage for your fantasy teams.
Yeah, because with Brian Robinson Jr., the whole thing is that if you're taking the gamble, if you start him, that CMC is either going to be it's running back by committee, and B Rob will be getting some of the snaps and some of the yardage. But on the other hand, if CMC ends up taking the full load, you're basically wasting the slot for B Rob.
Yeah, Brian Robinson's not a start unless we find out that McCaffrey is not going to play. McCaffrey is in the late window. Of course, a West Coast team should be in that window if they're playing on the West Coast. So have a contingency plan in play. I know I put him into a flex in one of the only league I have him where it's not a best ball. I have him in the flex. I picked up Alec Ayamanor, who is the rookie wide receiver for the Titans, because there's not many late games this week that had players on waivers that you really want to pick up and go with. So have a contingency plan just in case, but it looks like he is going to play. And the flashbacks to Vietnam of the Christian McCaffrey injury from last year seem to be overblown, at least so far. So let's get into the picks for week.
We do have two more quick
Oh,
stories I think that are of importance before we get to the picks.
all right.
Of course, Cleveland Browns and their second round pick Judkins finally reached agreement today, and the $11.4 million deal means that the all 2025 draft picks now have deals.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State, had a little bit of a legal issue that has since been
Leo,
thrown out. So there was a little bit of concern about his availability, anyways. Whether or not he was going to come out and be able to play right away, we'll see. I don't expect him to play this week. He just signed on, yesterday, Friday. He's not going to be playing this week. But what that means long term for Jerome Ford, for Dylan Sampson, the other two running backs in Cleveland, we'll see if he was in the game this week against Cincinnati. That is a great matchup for running back. So if you have Ford and you're in a desperation spot, or you went 0 RB, or you just feel like he's got the advantage on some of your players right now that you may have drafted. Maybe you are one of those people that drafted Caleb Johnson. You're not quite ready to put him in the starting rotation just because you don't know what his role is going to be. Jerome Ford's a good pivot this week.
and the other story before we get into picks, not picking our nose, but picks, that would be a little bit of a surprise retirement. That'd be Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Amari Cooper signed with the Raiders, was there about a week and said, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go home and sit on the couch.
He realized that the Raiders are not going to be good this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough division. I think you've got three legitimate Super Bowl contenders in that division, the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos. And even if the Raiders are considerably better than they were last year, they're still going to be a distant fourth, barring some significant injuries by one or more of those teams ahead of them. Good for Amari Cooper. He's only 30 years old, so he's played a long career for his age. Got some good money. He did win some people some fantasy titles 2 years ago, but he's off into retirement, and good for him. Hopefully, it's not a Darren Waller situation where he comes back in a couple of years and he just can't even get on the freaking field.
And final question, and we can get into our picks so we can get done within the same lifetime. Question is, who do you have when the onus? The onus of Micah Parsons being traded to the Packers from the Cowboys, who is the onus of the blame on? Jerry Jones, Micah Parsons, the agent, or somebody else?
It's Jerry Jones.
Okay.
Jerry Jones didn't want to negotiate with the agent present. The agent's job is to negotiate on behalf of the player. He said, well, I had a conversation with Micah and we had a deal, so that should have been it. It's like, well, you can say all you want. I had a deal with this person. Until you got pen to paper, you've just had a conversation. Now, if your agent was in the room with you two, then you could have had a deal, but you didn't want to do business that way. And he apparently that's a thing he's done. He went and talked to Michael Irvin about how when they were working on deals, they would just figure it out in person together, no agents, and now they're lifelong business partners. And I guess Micah doesn't want that from an 82-year-old Jerry Jones, a lifelong business partner. Jerry Jones might not live out the rest of Micah Parsons' career. He's a young player. Defensive players can play well into their late 30s, so I don't think you want to say, oh, Jerry, yeah, let's have a back of the napkin agreement. And then I get screwed when it goes into the legal terms because my agent wasn't present. It's 100% on Jerry Jones. Good on the Packers for making an aggressive deal to get Micah Parsons. 2 firsts and Kenny Clark does not seem like too big of a price to pay. But the Cowboys now have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years. Maybe you're not going to get a Micah Parsons, but you can get 4 very, very good first-round players, and that could help your team immensely down the line. I think it's a decent deal for the Cowboys long term, but right now it looks really, really bad. But the Packers, they become, I think, the second biggest favorite in the NFC behind the Philadelphia Eagles for the conference at this
Yeah,
point.
Dallas is going to get on the struggle bus early.
They didn't look too bad
No,
in
they were
week number
competitive,
one,
but
so maybe it's
season
not going to
wise,
be as bad as we expect. Anyways,
with the
let's go
two,
to the picks.
yeah, let's go to Sunday because the two games are already done. You picked Chargers. I think we both picked
Yeah,
Philly.
we both picked Philly. I took the Chargers, so I am up early 2-1.
Booyah!
Only 283 games more to go to hold that lead, so we'll see if we can do it. And we're going to start by picking Joel's
Only
Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Atlanta to face the Falcons. The Falcons are an interesting team to me. Michael Penix Jr., the rookie from last year, only got 3 starts. Is he going to take that next step? You've got Drake London, you've got Bijan Robinson, you've got Mooney, you've got Kyle Pitts. If he can step up, this could be a very good offense. They did put the defensive work in the draft and taking a couple of defensive linemen. Hopefully that defense is going to be better. Fantasy wise, you're playing London, you're playing Bijan Robinson for the Falcons. In tight end, you can take the shot on Kyle Pitts because tight end after the top 3 or 4 guys is a crapshoot. Anyways, for the Buccaneers, no Chris Godwin still. Not a surprise after the ankle injury last year. Not 100%. Should be back in a few weeks, though. Mike Evans is going to be a surefire start. Baker Mayfield should be a good start. Bucky Irving, of course. And then Emeka Egbuka could be a good start for the Buccaneers as well. Bucks on the road facing the Falcons. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, I tell you, this should be a close, fun game. One of the more fun ones. I had grammar there for the whole early slate. Bucks are favored both in spread and money line, but not by much. And I'll tell you, Fly, this is a statement game early on for both teams. Can Mayfield duplicate the amazing performance from last year to guide the Bucks to yet another division crown? Can he bake those cookies? And how will the absence of McMillan and Godwin affect the Bucks' air attack? You mentioned the rookie. We'll see if he steps up. Rookies tend to need to get going, not exactly having explosive week ones. But if he can, if Engbuka can, then maybe he'll buck the trend, as they say, and we'll see if he can live up to expectations. And how will Penix Jr. perform as the new field marshals for the Falcons? By the way, I don't know if you saw that video where you had the fairly brave fan, and by brave meaning he must have had a lot of brave juice, if you
Oh, Brave Juice.
mean.
Liquid Courage, they call it.
Yeah, because he actually called Penix Jr. Penis Jr. to his face. He's a pretty big dude. I don't think I would do that.
It's one thing for there to be a typo and you can say, oh, no, that autocorrected. I am so sorry, sir. It's another thing to look a grown NFL caliber athlete. Yes, quarterbacks are maybe not the most jacked, can lift you up and throw
He's
you
still a
against
pretty
the
big
wall.
dude.
People, maybe they're not the biggest, but they're still pretty big. I'll find Michael Penix's height and weight just for what it's worth. But
I don't think
probably
he would
not
have
the
just hit
best
you.
idea to just go up to him, who is 6'3", 220 pounds of pretty much pure muscle, and just say, "Your penis." Yeah, not not a good look.
You're going to get knocked out.
Like I was talking to somebody, and I've got the USF game on up here because I'm a former Bull. This way, you can
And they
see the
actually
helmet
won
there.
last week.
They destroyed Boise State last week, but they have a player on the team whose last name is Nimrod. And you got to think they're like, with a last name like that, you're going to be picked on. I'm like, if you are a good enough player to go to D1 college football, and he went to Tennessee and then transferred to South Florida, you probably got away with it. And anybody who said, oh, what a Nimrod, probably didn't like what happened after that.
They probably got their
So,
butt stuffed in a locker or worse.
anyway, so who are you taking in this game?
Yeah, I'm picking the Bucks. I think they did enough in the offseason to get the band back together, and even with the injuries as banged up as they are, I think they're looking to right the wrongs of last season, and I think they eke out a win 23-22. And it's a close game. It's a good game, but I think they get the win, the Falcons, and look to then sweep them when they come back to Ray J?
Well, I've got a very close game as well, but I'm going to take the Falcons to win it. I think both teams could be approaching 30 points. I believe Michael Penix is going to be a very good quarterback. Bijan Robinson is poised to be chasing the RB1 season in both fantasy and rushing yards in the actual NFL. Drake London has a chance to be a top 2 or 3 wide receiver. I don't think he passes Chase, but CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson with their quarterback situation, their team around him, I think Lamb's probably the only one that I confidently would say will beat him out for this year. But if he's the wide receiver 3, Bijan's the wide receiver 1, this is going to be a very good offense, and Michael Penix is going to have to be good. And I think without Chris Godwin, I think it's going to take a second. Another new offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers.
So you think that other side is going to be more hampered because of his absence than is generally thought?
Yeah, and don't forget, Atlanta did win both games last year against Tampa Bay.
And
So
then they choked.
they did choke, but they did win both games against Tampa Bay, and for what it's worth, that is
Yeah,
enough.
they paid Kirk Cousins all that money so they could sweep the Bucks, yet still lose.
Yeah. But I'm going to take the Falcons, and we'll move on to what
I could see it going either way, but I
it's
got to
going to
be
be a
a
good
little bit of
game.
a homer.
This is one of those where I think in a
I got to
betting
be a homer.
situation, if you have the spread, I think you take the underdog here. I don't think the spread's a lot of points, but I think you would take the spread if you can. And actually, I should be able to pull up the spread on here, but they're not in the same order. Oh, they are. Atlanta is a 2.5 point underdog.
Yeah, they're pretty close. It's going to be
So
one of the squeaker games.
yeah, a 2.5 point underdog. I think if you're betting, you want to take
Easily, no,
Atlanta.
I'm a homer.
Even
if I
with
see
your
them up,
pick, even
but
with
I
your
can
pick
see it
against
go
the
either
spread,
way.
even with your pick against the spread, you're taking Atlanta with a 1 point win for Tampa. Next up, Cincinnati
I
at
don't think we
Cleveland.
need a lot of analysis about this one, kids.
Cincinnati only a 5.5 point favorite on the road in Cleveland, and since Joe Burrow's been their starting quarterback, 1-9 in week 1 and week 2 are the Bengals. However, Cleveland is still Cleveland. A lot of the time, last year the Bengals lost to the Patriots, who ended up being a very bad team. So let's not just say not a lot of analysis needed, because this could be the trend. But for what it's worth, Joe Burrow's first off season fully healthy, I think that's going to be a big, big thing. For the Bengals, you're lighting everybody up. Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Chase Brown. Even if you need a desperation tight end play, you've got Gesicki. For the Browns, I think this is a good spot start for Joe Flacco in super flex leagues. In fact, I am starting him over Russell Wilson and Michael Penix, who I just mentioned. I am starting Joe Flacco over him because that Cincinnati defense is absolutely atrocious, which means Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, even Jerome Ford could be a very, very good play. So this could be one of those games where at the end of the day you go, how is this a 42-41 final? Just because it could go absolutely insane. So Joel, I think I know where you're going based on your comment, but tell me your rationale behind it.
I think since he gets by Cleveland pretty easy, 27-21, just because the defense gives them opportunities to stay in the game, but just that offense, when you're talking Joe Burrow, when you're talking Jamar Chase, when you're talking T. Higgins, when you're talking they finally got all the contract nonsense and shenanigans taken care of before the season started, I think it's going to be a different Cincy this year.
I do too. I think they're getting off to a better start. I don't necessarily think that's going to be an elite top end team in the grand scheme of things. I think they're in a very tough division. They're going to have a hard time winning, even maybe making a playoff appearance, just because of how good the rest of that division should be. But Cleveland is not on the same level. I think Cincinnati's offense comes out big time as the Bulls take the lead. That will be a
Would you
distraction.
use Cincy in a survivor pick here or no?
I wouldn't. If I haven't done a survivor pool, I probably should. For what it's worth, for me, it would be Denver. Denver playing Tennessee. Tennessee was a lot worse team last year. Denver has a great defense, a rookie quarterback in their first game. I would say if I'm going to go that way,
All right.
Denver is probably the team I would pick.
I'm actually
However, Cincinnati, Washington are another couple of those in play for me. So I can't fault anybody who says they're going to go to Cincinnati.
I'm actually going Cardinals for my first week.
Cardinals is a very good one. And the Cardinals defense is one I've picked up a lot because, well, they're playing New Orleans. We'll get to the game here in a little bit. All right, so we're both on Cincinnati. On to the next one, Miami at Indianapolis. The Colts starting Daniel Jones. What does that mean? I don't 100% know.
Improvement for the Colts.
But passing wise, it is going to be an improvement. We'll have to see what that means in reality with
They
the
suck
other
less.
stuff that Anthony Richardson brings to the table or won't bring to the table this time. But you're going to still start Jonathan Taylor. Tyler Warren looks like the real deal. It's a little risky starting rookie in his first ever NFL game, but I think it's a good opportunity here to play him. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, at least in consideration for a flex position, probably not in week number 1. For the Dolphins, you're going to play HN, who is healthy. Tyreek Hill, you drafted him. He's going to be in your lineup. Jalen Waddle, probably a flex consideration. And if on waivers, Ollie Gordon is still there for the Dolphins, it's probably wise to pick him up because HN, he's only one very small man. The next man up is going to have to get some work, and it could be Ollie Gordon. If HN goes down, you've got a gold mine there. I don't think you want to play either quarterback or either defense in this game. So, Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, this one, tell you, you're having people out there trying to make the case for the Colts. For me, tough pill to swallow in that case is when Tua is healthy, and it's week 1, so he's healthy. By far the better option, as you know, than Daniel Jones any day of the week. Seriously, you have a little bit of a lingering injury concerns for Hill and Achad, but like you said, you drafted them, you're starting them. You're not going, well, let me spend all that draft capital on Tyreek Hill, maybe do something crazy. I got Achan, but they're going to be on my bench. That's one, of course, when players go off and you're like yelling at the screen. I'm sure you've been there a time or two. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you don't bench your starters. You don't bench the guys you draft in the first 4 or 5 rounds
yeah,
because you drafted them to be your starters.
that,
With the very rare exception of a guy like Caleb Johnson, who thinks going to be good at the end of the year, maybe not quite yet.
yeah.
So
But
you're playing Tyreek Hill.
yeah, it's hard going against a high flying Dolphins defense that they can really dismantle bad teams, and the Colts ain't a good team. Bad grammar on purpose. They are far from a good team. Back when the days when, yeah, Tony Dungy was there. So
Yeah.
yeah, just remember that. Yeah, yeah. But Colts struggle with a might be over with AR-15. I know there are a lot of people saying maybe they gave up a little bit too early. Well, time will tell. But yeah, I think Miami wins a close one, 24-20 here, easily. And hopefully Tyreek shows up.
Well, Tyreek, with being stripped of the captaincy, has to prove his worth once again. I think that's a good thing for Tyreek Hill in this offense. I
And
don't
did
think
you
they.
see his response? You don't need a title to lead.
Well, that's very true. You don't. The best players often are the ones that just show up and do their job. We saw it with New England for years. I'm also on Miami. I just can't get behind Daniel Jones. I think they will be a solid, decent team, but I just don't think they're on the same wavelength and the same caliber of team as Miami. Miami's front seven has to be good because the defense can take off. The defense can be ripped apart in the back end, I should say, and the wide receivers could take the top end off. But I think Miami's going to hold on. Next up,
Battle of the Meows.
a surprisingly interesting game, in my opinion, is Carolina at Jacksonville. I think there is a case to be said for a lot of good fantasy options in this one because both these defenses were terrible last year. Carolina, a biblically terrible team, one of the worst of
Dear
all
Jacksonville
time.
Jaguars, don't step on Trevor Lawrence this year.
Yeah, so for the Panthers, you're going to play Chuba Hubbard. You should be playing Tedero and McMillan. You could be looking at a Leggett. You could be looking at Bryce Young in Superflex leagues. For the Jaguars, you're going to play Brian Thomas Jr. I think Hunter is an option. I don't know if he's necessarily someone you want to start. We still don't necessarily know what that split between offense, defense, the snap count is going to be. Um, in the backfield for Jacksonville, good luck. They have three good running backs. Who's going to be the starter week in, week out? I put my money on Travis Etienne. You look at the draft capital, look at the overall ability. He was the number 3 running back in fantasy 2 years ago, had a down year last year, but so did everybody else on the Jaguars. And I think Trevor Lawrence is a very interesting spot start in desperation if you need it this week. So, Joel, what do you got in this one?
Yeah, because it's like I said, it's the battle of the pussycats here. But oh, and I saw somebody had a funny typo there on Reddit where were putting, instead of the Jags, they put the Bags as one of the three teams that you had to watch out for possible weather this year. And then so somebody was like, "Who are the Bags?" was one of the replies, and then someone else replied, "Well, you've heard of them, don't you know that they're the Bagsonville, Jaguar, yeah,
Jacksonville Bags.
yeah. So you just sometimes you have to love the internet, and you can tell when someone does bags instead of jags. It's like somebody probably was, when you're sleep typing and you're sleep posting, as we've all been there a time or two or three. But yeah, when you're talking about the teams, I mean, you have the Panthers, who have Bryce Young, who is slowly not becoming the worst quarterback in the entire league. Hopefully, T. Law's rested and recovered, and once again, please, dear Jacksonville Jaguars, try not to step on your quarterback this year. PSA. But yeah, Panthers definitely have a couple more hurdles to jump over, I think, before they've proven themselves that they're ready for the postseason. But I think the Jaguars get by 26-21. Panthers are showing last year that they can be definitely competitive. You saw it against the Chiefs, you saw it against the Bucks, and I think they're competitive here, but got to give this one to the Jags.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jags as well, but this is, I think, a real upset potential game for Carolina to come back.
Ooh.
Jacksonville is a 3.5 point favorite. If you're betting, I think you take that this could be a 3-point win for Jacksonville. You take the points with Carolina. I just think Jacksonville is too good offensively. They've got too many weapons, and they will just get one or two more plays that makes the difference in this game, and Jacksonville will come out on top. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is a last-second field goal kind of win for Jacksonville. We know the kicker hit a 70-yarder in preseason, so that could come into play. Just a bomb field goal at the end of the game. All right, next up, Las Vegas at New England.
Amari Cooper's former team.
Yes, a very interesting matchup between two young running backs, two teams that maybe are on the rise, maybe. Aston Genty and, of course,
Call it maybe.
everybody's big darling at the end of the draft season was Trevion Henderson. So both running backs, I think they're in play for you. Obviously, Genty took in the first round. You're not benching him for anything. For the Raiders, you're still going with Brock Bowers. You are still going to play Jacoby Myers, even though the trade demand request saga went nowhere. He's still the number one on that team.
I
But
don't like the Raiders right now.
Dante Thornton Jr., keep an eye and an ear out for what he does. Rookie wide receiver. He is definitely, as the Bulls get a safety. Nice. Anyways, distractions. Bulls are up 15-9, by the way. He is definitely going to have the potential to be a great wide receiver in this league. He's a size and speed freak. They're going to need an option. So keep that in mind. For New England, I really think beyond Henderson and Drake May, maybe Stephon Diggs, but I think the rest of you kind of want to see how this team looks, how they function as an offense. It is in New England. It's Mike Vrabel's first game as the head coach. You got to think their defense is going to be improved from last year. But Vegas, Aston Genty, new head coach, and Pete Carroll. Who do you got?
Yeah, maybe you took either a dart throw or maybe even reached for Drake May with all the talk of the improved play expected from the Patriots for 2025, the improved offensive line. And meanwhile, you have the Raiders just seem to be doing a lot of patching here and there. Everywhere you look, here a patch, there a patch, everywhere a patch. And I do believe the Pats emerge from, victorious from this week's game, just because the Bucks have the scoring a bit lower, but still in the 40s. And yeah. I mean, the Patriots aren't exactly are the favorites, but not by much. But I think they get a home win, 23-20 over a Raiders team that they're still trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah, Raiders are a 3.5 point dog. So again, you would be taking the cover for the Raiders in this one. I'm taking the Raiders to win outright.
Mm.
I think New England is a year away. I've said that when we did our AFC breakdown. I think they're just a year away. And I think that this Vegas Raiders with Geno Smith, I mean, this was a competitive enough team with Aiden O'Connell. Geno Smith, while not a world beater, is a far cry better than what they had at quarterback last year. You've got Dante Thornton's going to give a number 2 wide receiver parallel to Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers should continue to ascend, and then Ashton Genty could be an absolute game breaker for the Raiders. I think they're going to surprise some teams early on, especially when those teams aren't the cream of the crop. And I think New England at the end of the year is going to look a lot better than they do at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to take the Raiders to win this one.
And Sports Shuffle Audible, did you see the story, since we're talking Patriots, that Bill Belichick, again, he had a good first week in college. Not.
48-14 loss. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
How,
know where you're going with this.
hallelujah, holy bleep, where's the Tylenol? Did you see the story where Belichick did not let Patriot scouts
Yeah.
into his stadium?
Yeah, he's got a zero access ban for the New England Patriots franchise, which means he obviously didn't leave with the warm, fuzzy feelings of the franchise when he did depart. Yeah, I read a few things about this, and the consensus was no teams do that because it hurts their players long term. Not giving scouts an option because, I mean, the Patriots aren't preparing to play the Tar Heels next week. It's not like you're restricting an opponent from coming and scouting you. It's a potential future for these kids. So, not necessarily the best thing, but he's made some very questionable decisions since he left the Patriots. For what it's worth, I don't think it's going to work out in North Carolina very long. But
Yeah,
48-14 to start is not great.
apparently he and his girlfriend have done trademark gold digger for jewelry. Some I'm not sure what to make of all that. Just
I don't want to touch that relationship with a 20-foot pole.
moving on to
I'd
perhaps
rather live permanently in a red blob than have to talk about those guys. Anywho, that
moving
is the
on to
weather.
probably the worst game of the week.
This, you say that, and usually these games are surprising. However, it is Spencer Rattler. It is the New Orleans Saints facing the Arizona Cardinals.
The team that literally waited to just right before week 1 to name their quarterback because they had no other option.
Yeah. I know Spencer Rattler sucks because he cost me a fantasy football championship by not having the Saints be remotely competitive against the Packers because they had to bench Josh Jacobs with most of the second half still to go. So I know he is a bad quarterback. Chris Olave coming back from the injury. Alvin Kamara is still there. Those would be your only real fantasy options for the Saints if you need them.
Yeah,
Probably not the best bet.
I literally drafted Rashid Shaheed because I'm like, somebody's got to catch the damn
Hey,
ball
Rashid
there.
Shaheed needs one catch that goes to the house from 75 yards, and it's a great play. But for the Saints, it's not a lot of fantasy goodness outside of Kamara and possibly Olave. Olave, with his concussion issues last year, is the wide receiver version of Tua, high risk, and it's just a dangerous situation. For the Cardinals, though, James Conner, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, all going to be in your starting lineup this week. Don't be surprised if Harrison and Murray disappoint to an extent because this game is not close. If the game stays close, I think both those have very good games, but this could be a 31-0 halftime lead, and then the foot's off the gas the entire way. Arizona defense. If you were like me who wanted Denver's defense because they had a very soft opening schedule, and Denver's defense was usually one of the first 2 or 3 off the board, Arizona's defense might still be out on waivers. It was a team I drafted a lot of because those top 2 or 3 options for week 1 did get drafted off the board, and Arizona was still there every single time. This year in defense, if you're not going to have a Denver, you're not going to have a Chargers that looked really good last night, or a Jets if they come back to form, or one of those teams that are top notch. Focusing on who's playing New Orleans might be your best bet. Anywho, with that said, Joel,
Yes, the Cardinals
we
are
got
pretty much almost 3-0 dollar favorites.
Only a 6.5 point favorite
That pretty much tells you
on the road.
who Vegas is picking here. I mean, like you said, that's maybe saying that somehow the Saints are going to stay competitive. I seriously doubt it, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out how this game is in the 40-point totals because of the Cardinals' offense. I'm going to guessing because yeah, you're trying to figure out how much offenses or lack thereof is going to come from the Saints. And this is probably, like I said, this is going to be one of the worst games of the week. And how many people are going to be going, oh, okay, let's see. Let me check on the Cardinals offense. Let me click to another game. And I think the Cardinals are also, like I said earlier, a good, very, very good survivor pick. Because other than, this is one of those times that you can use them because you're looking at some of the other games down the line, you don't have as much confidence in them. I say 26-17, the Cardinals easily get their first dub of the year.
Yeah. I'm going to take the Cardinals as well. I don't think it's necessarily close. It could be a sneaky game. I mean, we saw the Saints come out and surprise the first 2 weeks last year, and then they fell off a cliff. But I'm going to take the Cardinals as well. All right, next up,
We
Pittsburgh
go to
at
the Aaron Rodgers revenge game.
the Aaron Rodgers revenge game. Pittsburgh going back to the scene of the snapped Achilles in New Jersey against the Jets. For the Steelers, it's going to be Warren. It's going to be DK Metcalf. Probably end the list for your fantasy option. For the Jets, Garrett Wilson. And if you're desperate, Brees Hall, and you drafted him, you might have to play him. But all of that said, probably not going to be a high-scoring game. Both defenses should be good plays this week as well. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another sloppy game with both teams, Joe Namath, struggling. And yeah, I think it's just where the best victory goes right to the end of the game, and that's when you get the victory. Is when the game is over with because it's just going to be one of those games you're going, why am I watching this? And I just think Aaron Rodgers is the better of the two quarterbacks. God, I can't believe I said that, but I did. Steelers win 20. I'm going to say like 24, 26, 20, something along those lines. And after the win, Aaron Rodgers will be anointed the Duke of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it could be like a 16-12 kind of game very, very easily, I think. I do think Pittsburgh takes it, but I would be surprised if both of these teams got to 20. I'd be surprised if one of these teams got to 20, to be honest. The real interesting part is going to be if DK Metcalf is just hyper targeted for fantasy reasons down the line. Obviously, the Jets have a good corner in Sauce Gardner, so we'll have to see what he does.
And how will the other Justin do?
Yeah, and Justin Fields, I mean, I think both defenses are just going to be the stars of this game, and whichever kicker can be more efficient and might be whoever gets a touchdown instead of some field goals wins this one. Next
And
up,
another ugly game.
this could be sneaky, though. The Giants have a
Okay.
weird vibe around them.
Okay.
That they seem like they're a team that thinks they're better than they are. They seem to think they have a lot of fun. And Russell Wilson was good when he started with Pittsburgh last year. Giants defense should be pretty good. I'm laying the best case scenario out that the Giants are
And
competitive.
who he has backing him up. Eat those
And
W's.
well, Jackson Dart's the number 2. And then obviously Jameis Winston as well. So all of that being said, they're playing the Washington Commanders. So you're going to play Malik Neighbors for the Giants. That may be end of list. Tyrone Tracy, of course, is the current starter in the backfield. I don't know if you want to play him. Wandale Robinson in a PPR deep league could be an option as well. For the Commanders, Terry McLaurin did sign. He's going to be in your lineup. So is Deebo Samuel. And Austin Eckler is going to be the running back I think you want there as of right now. And, of course, Jaden Daniels will be in your lineups for quarterback. So, Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, it's just hard pick. I know that the Giants have made some improvements. I know you also have the coach that's definitely coaching. I think the coach and the GM are they're coaching and playing for their jobs because the owners running out of patience if one remembers correctly. But yeah, you have to give it to the Commanders. Just better quarterback. Jaden Daniels. Then, if you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and Jackson Dart all combined, got to pick Commanders 27-20.
Yeah, I'm going to take Washington as well. I don't necessarily see the Giants being competitive, but I think they could hold this team down a little bit. Only a 5.5 point underdog. I don't think they cover, but I do think they get pretty close. I think Washington takes it, and maybe it's one of those that looks better than it really was for the Giants. But anyways, we're both taking Washington. Next up, I've already kind of spoiled my pick by saying Denver would be my eliminator pick, but for what it's worth, Denver is playing against the Tennessee Titans. Tony Pollard's probably the only real option. Calvin Ridley as well for the Titans. Probably not a lot of fantasy goodness here. Denver, a great defensive play. Of course, you have Cortland Sutton. You've got RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. You've got Evan Ingram and Bo Nix that will also be in consideration for starting roles on your fantasy teams. Joel, I've already said I'm taking Denver. Who do you got?
Yeah, it's hard picking the Broncos, especially when the Broncos are $4 freaking plus favorites. You know, it's hard to pick the Titans, even though Cam Moore's going to be a more than improvement over the Mayo quarterback. You know, the meme man Will Levis, who was just he was awful. I mean, every week last year, he just seemed to have his own highlight reel, and it was a low light reel. So, picking the Broncos, and I'm even having to think once 27-14. It's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I'm going to take Denver to win big as well. I do think the Titans will be a better team by the end of the season, but the first couple of weeks, I think it's going to mirror Denver last year, where it's just they're not going, they're not going. All of a sudden, oh, they look pretty good, and I think they'll be fine by the end of the year. But early on, playing a team like Denver, that's a rough break. And we move on to the next one: San Francisco at Seattle. CMC looks like he's going to play. If he plays, he has to be in your starting lineup as well as George Kittle. And I would think Pearson Jennings are at least in consideration with Purdy, a quarterback option if you should need one. For the Seahawks, Ken Walker and JSN, I think might be about end of list for week number one fantasy
Pretty
option.
much.
Cooper Cup in a deep scenario could be an option as well. Both teams have hopes for a good year. I mean, Seattle was a 10-win team last year. San Francisco fell off a cliff. Joe, who do you got? I mean, they got hurt.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Hmm? What?
Go ahead. What'd you pick?
Oh no, yeah, San Francisco falling off a cliff is pretty much apropos because even with their injury concerns, I think the 49ers are the better of the two teams here. Even though the Niners are not favored by much, you just have a mass exodus of offensive weaponry and notables from Seattle that really have a lot of questions for them going forward in 2025. So it's not that I have all that much confidence in the 49ers. It's just I have so many questions and lack of confidence in the Seahawks that I'm picking the 49ers get the win. I think like 26-17. I just think the Seahawks are trying to figure out who they are.
I agree with you. I think the Seahawks getting a new offensive coordinator, Sam Darnold, the quarterback, it's not going to be very smooth. This offense is going to be more cohesive with the 49ers, and I think they do take control and win this one tomorrow, probably by about 10 points. And we'll move on to probably the game of the week. If not, there's one more we'll talk about a little bit later. The Sunday night game might be the game of the week as well. But Detroit at Green Bay. Whew. If you've got him in this offense for the Detroit Lions, you're going to be playing him. Jamison Williams. You've got Montgomery. You've got Gibbs. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Even if you Laporta, anybody pretty much on that offensive side for Detroit, you're going to be playing. And for the Packers, it's going to be Kraft. It's going to be Jacobs. I think you can play Matthew Golden in this one. It's going to be a very good game. But both defenses are very good. Detroit's going to be healthy. Micah Parsons now in Green Bay. This could be either a high-scoring shootout or a complete defensive shutdown kind of game, or anywhere in between. Only time will tell. So, Joe, who do you got?
Yeah, because sorry, Packers, I know they're really pumped about getting Micah Parsons, but I just think Detroit has so many more weapons on their offense, and their defense has to be healthier than last year. And that's not too hard to get when you pretty much the entire squad on the flipping IR. You remember those injury reports from last year, especially in the playoffs going, how are they even playing? And while an upset would not shock me, it's just tough to pick against the Lions, even going into Green Bay. And I think they step up, and it's a close one. Talking divisional, but think it's going to be 2017, and the Lions shock Lambeau Field.
Yeah, Lions are a 2.5 point underdog in this one, and I'm going to be taking the favorites in Green Bay in this one.
Ooh.
You have to remember both offensive and defensive coordinators have switched teams. Of course, Ben Johnson with Chicago, Aaron Glenn now with the Jets. You've got new coordinators. How is that going to work? You've got defense that is coming back together. Yes, there's a lot of talent, but is there going to be a cohesive unit? Green Bay, I think Matthew Golden really opens up this offense a little bit more than we expect. I think that defense with Micah Parsons is going to be much, much improved, and the road game is going to play a factor. So I am going to take the Packers in what should be a very good game. All right, next up, the last daytime game. It's Houston at the Los Angeles Rams. For Houston in the backfield, I think it's Nick Chubb, but it's a risky play. I think if you're looking at fantasy options, it's Nico Collins and nothing else at this time. For the Rams, it's Puka, it's Kyron, it's Devontae Adams.
Okay.
You've got all of those as good options in the fantasy world. Whatever you've drafted really is going to be in your lineup. Rams were probably the closest to knocking off the Eagles in last year's playoff scenario. Their defense was much improved by the end of the year. Houston, no Christian Kirk. That's going to affect the offense. Of course, no Joe Mixon for the first 4 weeks. So still going to be a good offense, but it's going to be a little shorthanded. So, Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, shorthanded is definitely the theme for the Texans, and that's why I tend to be leaning the Rams because even Stafford's ready to go, even with all the injury concerns. That video, you see him how he's walking, and you're just going, yeah, I don't know. It's probably why a lot of people probably steered clear of drafting him in fantasy, but I still think the Rams are the better of the two offenses easily. Plus, you have the absence, as you mentioned, Joe Mixon. Yeah, so when your running attack is hampered, that definitely hampers your entire offense. And I just think that that's felt by the Texans more than they will realize. I think the Rams get a home dub to start things off, something along the lines of we'll say 30-24, and you just hope that Stafford can stay healthy.
I'm also taking the Rams. I think it is a pretty big mismatch. Houston's got a really bad offensive line. The Rams have a pretty solid defensive line that should be improved this year even further. That wide receiver core is going to be very young and very beat up. Other than Nico Collins, I think the Rams are better in that capacity. I think they've got the better running game, the better offensive line. So I just think they're better at all fronts. So I think the Rams win this one fairly easily, and we'll move on. If
The
it's
game
not
of the week,
Detroit, Green Bay, this is the game of the week. It's Baltimore
it's not
at
Monday night's game.
Buffalo. It is Sunday night football. Obviously, these two teams have a history against each other in the playoffs. Baltimore, the Mark Andrews drop heard around the world. Of course, ending their season last year. Mark Andrews, I think, at tight end is in your lineup
And
as
the
well as,
Josh
of course,
Allen not getting the first down heard around the
yeah,
world.
that was against Kansas City, but still, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson in your lineup, and I think Mark Andrews is about as far as you want to go in the wide receiver. No Isaiah Likely this week for the Ravens, so that
So
should
he's
really
not
open
likely
it up.
RR, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Oh, got
Bateman
it.
could be an actual play as well, but who knows? For the Bills, it's going to be Josh Allen. It's going to be James Cook. I think Keon Coleman could be a sneaky play in this one, as well as Khalil Shakir, but those are a little more of a depth option. Joel, this is arguably game one, the best game of the week. One of the toughest games these two teams will have all year. Who do you got?
Yeah, this one is one that I know you have a lot of people are picking the Ravens to go to the Super.
And we lost Joel. So hopefully he'll come back here in a little bit. I'll do my pick real quick. I am taking Baltimore. I think they are the better team. I think they got revenge on their mind. And I just can't see a world where Buffalo can shut down Derrick Henry consistently for 4 quarters. I think they will get the job done, and Baltimore will get the win. And now we'll hear from Joel. Joel, who do you got?
So this second is sponsored by Technical Difficulties, and we're back. And of course, yeah, as you said, definitely flying the game of the week. Unquestionably, it ain't Monday night game. Let me tell you, oh boy, maybe sneakier than we think, but this be it right here. As you have a lot of people picking Ravens for Super Bowl this year. Ravens and Lions was one I heard. I'm like, Okay, that's one that I don't think you need to drink a lot of Kool-Aid to swallow. If just the Ravens can cross the flippin' hump when they need to. Now, when it comes to the Ravens, and it's very easy to break this game down because you're looking at what they have done against the Bills. Bills, when they play the Ravens in their home, they thump them. When they play the Bills in Orchard Park, which is what they're doing here, the Bills have one very close divisional playoff win, one regular season win. That, ladies and gentlemen, puts me solely on the side of the Bills. Might look at things a little bit differently if it was at the Ravens, but I think it's going to be, a lot of close games, I think, this week. This one, 24-23 to 21, with the Bills eking out a win. And just the Ravens having more questions about their legitimacy for the Super Bowl begin in earnest early.
Yeah, like I said, I'm taking Baltimore, so disagreement on that one. We'll go to Monday Night Football, Minnesota at Chicago.
Do the Bears still suck?
I believe they do, but on the first game of the season, we'll see. JJ McCarthy is a complete unknown in an actual NFL game, so we'll have to see how he does. You're going to be playing Justin Jefferson. You're going to be playing TJ Hawkinson from the Vikings. A case could be made for Aaron Jones in deeper leagues or Jordan Mason. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a best bet. DJ Moore should be in your starting lineup along with DeAndre Swift in some deeper leagues. I think it's going to be a very good defensive battle. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring shootout kind of affair. I think the winner is the first to get to 20 because I don't think the second one gets there. So, Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, after a Sunday night football, that's definitely will live up to the expectation. I think this one might prove to be the finale of week one that might be a better watch than expected, as I'm thinking the Vikings win a close one, something along the lines of 2019, with Caleb throwing a brutal pick six late, and Vikings pick up their very first home victory.
I think it's going to be a game that's closer, but the final score is going to look worse. And I think Minnesota wins it somewhere around 21-10, maybe a late touchdown or a late pick six, like you just said, putting it out of reach. But I'm going to take Minnesota as well, and we'll wrap up week number one right there. So 2-0 start for me, 1-1 for Joel. We do have a little bit of disagreement as I've got Vegas, Green Bay, and Baltimore and Atlanta as the differentiating picks. He's got Tampa, New England, Detroit, and Buffalo. The rest of the games we agree on, so we'll see how that pans out. And with that, we'll go to Joel with final thoughts.
Yeah, as I'm sure I've got an alternate final thought. If you want to, unless you have something that you want to do and that you have prepared, I think you're probably going to want to talk because Red Zone's going through a little bit of a change, and then I'll get to mine.
Well, let's talk. Red Zone was not going to be my final thought, but
Oh,
let's
okay.
talk about it. Of course, the NFL broadcasting rights were bought out by ESPN, or sorry, the NFL itself was basically bought out by ESPN, other than the actual organization. ESPN immediately puts ads on Red Zone, so instead of
No
being seven
longer
hours
7 hours of commercial-free football.
now it's 7 hours of Red Zone football. And I've never seen grown men complain more about a small thing than that. I mean, you have ads all over the place at all times. I mean, if you go on Facebook, about a third to half of what you see, they're ads.
YouTube,
No one complains about that.
you need ad blockers on YouTube.
Yeah, it is what it is. I think we were very lucky to have Red Zone as it was for as long as we did. Unfortunately, those who got used to Red Zone being the best way to watch football, they're going to have to deal with ads. It's still going to be good product. It depends on how bad the ads are. If they're every 5 minutes, it's going to be absolutely awful. If they're at key times, it's going to be awful. Like, I have no problem if they say, hey, we're going to load up on ads between 1 and 2:30, and then we're going to limit ads between 2:30 and 4. So those games, as they're coming to the conclusion, you can watch the Red Zone pretty well. Same thing with the late games where you have that window where it's like, yeah, throw the ads on when it's less important. When it's more critical times, let's back off. I'm not ESPN. I hope that's what they do. I'm not convinced, but yeah, red zone pretty much dead for a lot of people for
Okay.
what they're used to.
So before we get to my final thought, what's yours?
My final thought was last night's game in Brazil. The NFL did something they've never done before, and they allowed not only the original, I think it was Rich Eisen on the call. I say I think because I didn't watch the broadcast the way they put it out because they let some YouTube personalities, and of course we talked about Tom Grassi a lot. So of course I watched his stream, but they did let 4 or 5 YouTube personalities live stream and show the game. So it was refreshing to not hear the overly polished, overly, oh, we can't say anything good or bad, can't have fun. Tom Grassi had a flag counter. He was talking about how the refs were trying to have more flags and the Chargers had points at one point. That was a competition going back and forth with some of the fans and having his community around him. It was a really interesting experiment that I hope they do again because I thought it was a very interesting, fun way to watch the game. There were some technical issues in the fourth quarter with Grossi's feed into the game, but the game still played normal. So that's why I'm pretty sure it was Rich Eisen on the coverage because I could hear it when he was down. But I thought it was a really interesting way to do things. It is a good way to showcase the partnership between the NFL and YouTube because, of course, Sunday Ticket is on YouTube. So it was a good way to partner with some of their best creators. I know Speed was another one, not someone I'm really super familiar with. I've heard of him, but not really what he does. Of course, Tom Grassi, I'm a huge fan of. Hey, there were a few more. I think it'd be cool to see someone like maybe a Brandon Perna from That's Good Sports, if you can get him to not swear, to do something like that because he's very witty, very quick with the jokes. I mean, Urinating Tree, who we've talked about,
Yeah,
5 points. Like they, all 5 of these guys are friends. Like they could do a 5-way, almost Manning style broadcast and
yeah,
have a
Tree.
lot of fun with it as
The
well.
NFL video was doing prediction of the season. Actually, gave when they got to the Steelers, they gave a shout out to Tree.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really interesting way of doing things. It was unique. It brought a flair to the game that we haven't seen before. And instead of hearing the commentator that you're used to, you had jokes, you had some fun, you had people going back and forth, and you got to highlight these guys who do good work around the NFL. So good job with the NFL and YouTube partnering together. I thought Tom Grossi in particular did a great job, and I hope it's something they bring back once in a while again because he does his live streams, but you can't show the game with it. This way, he was able to show the game so you could see it in real time what he was talking about. So I thought it was a really good idea, really good partnership, and I hope they do it one more time at least.
And my final thought is, of course, he had a interesting story, baseball wise. With apparently there was a kid who caught a home run ball. I don't know if you saw this, but kid who caught a home run ball. Then you had this screaming lady who actually bullied the father and the kid into giving up the ball, claiming that it was hers. Just going absolutely bat bleep crazy. And so the father was like, okay, go ahead and give her the ball. But then the Marlins, because it was the Phillies and Marlins playing, the Marlins then did a cool thing and gave the kid a Marlins gift bag to make up for the crazy lady bullying the father and the kid to get the home run ball. So, GG Marlins, I know that they get a lot of flack and not exactly what you would call a historic or successful franchise, but you got to give out a GG when they do something cool like that.
Yeah, it was a good move. That reminds me of the guy at the U.S. Open that took the hat from the kid. Same kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah,
U.S. Open, the
the
tennis.
CEO.
Yeah, he did not have a good time after that. But the U.S. Open, the tennis player that was involved, all did some cool things. Got with the kid, gave him like a little goodie bag as well. So it's always good to see athletes and teams when adults do crappy things make up for it. And we've seen it also when like Mike Evans chucked the ball into the stands. It was, I think, Tom Brady's record-breaking ball, and they said, "Hey, fan, come down, give us the ball. We will make it right with you." I think it's good when teams do that, and they say, "Hey, look, we understand that things happen in the stands. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and if it's affecting your enjoyment or if it's going to be taking something back from you, we're going to do the right thing." A lot of teams nowadays, they do the right thing, which is what we enjoy in sports. No drama, uh, usually no drama at least. All right, so that is our first pick 'em of the year. Hopefully, we don't have any problems with storms and hurricanes and
Mother Nature.
family tragedy that breaks up this season because last year was very interesting. Oh, breaking. Jaguars plan to use number 2 pick Travis Hunter as quote unquote every down wide receiver and situational corner in season opener. So I think that means Travis Hunter needs to go in your lineup. I said he was a decision to make. He was an option. I think that puts him in play because I think this is going to be a very high scoring game, and he's going to have some opportunities. So breaking news at the very end of the podcast today. So yeah, week 1, excited back for football. We'll see how the fantasy goes.
Kind of nice. Not the drafts were fun, but it's nice just being able to end it when it's time to end it.
Yeah, I know the last couple of drafts I had were Labor Day on Monday, and by the end of the second one, I was like, "All right, I'm done with drafting. Let's get to the main course. Let's do what we came to do. Play the fantasy, hopefully win some titles, have some fun, talk some smack if you're in a league that has that kind of thing going, and enjoy the 2025-26 football season. We know, as it happens every year, it's gone before you know it. It's only week 1. Let's enjoy it. Let's savor it, and let's have some fun getting back to football. So I am, of course, flying around Ryan Gilchrist along with.
Tampa Motor Mouth, Joel Vernon.
Be back next week, more of a regular schedule, getting the recap of week number 1, previewing the Thursday night game for week 2, and then we'll do our picks after Thursday night football has completed over the weekend. So with that, we go.